On the Real Talk Christian podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. This is Marc Hyde
and Chris Fuller.
And today we are talking about the illusion of freedom, primarily asking the question, is life without God really free? You know, I've seen a lot of TikToks and Instagram reels lately talking about the fact of why does God care so much about my personal life? It's so much more freeing once you throw off the shackles of religion. And today we're going to talk about that. So Fuller, you ready, man?
Let's go.
For free? Oh, I thought you were going to say for Gondor. Gondor calls for aid.
Gondor calls for aid, and we will answer.
Which side note, have you used your new little dice roller of Minas Tirith yet that you 3D printed?
Well,
did it break?
Technically, I didn't print it for me.
Oh, was that for
Paul?
Was that for Paul? Okay, I was sure it was for Paul. So did you give it to Paul yet?
I have not. I don't see him until middle of July, time of recording.
So I'm not blowing any accidental gifts.
4 weeks. Wait, no, you're not blowing it.
It's
already passed. He does not know it's coming.
Oh,
he doesn't know it's coming. But this is already aired post giving it.
So I don't know if we talk about this on air, but Fuller 3D printed a dice rolling thing of Minas Tirith.
Oh, but see, I did something even better than that.
No, you didn't.
I did it. So this is hand poured. What? Hand poured.
You are the king of I have no time, but I'm going to start a hobby.
Oh, I've got. Where do you go? I've got.
I don't know how you keep up with your hobbies.
I got many.
What do you do these at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep?
Where'd you go?
What are you looking up? So you have how many 3D printers do you have? 2 3D printers or 3? Is that a light up chessboard?
It is
with LED lights built into the chessboard.
It is,
or is it like
hand painted Star Wars?
Okay, I've seen the hand painted Star Wars piece. So we got the Rebels, and then we have the Empire.
Rebels and the Empire. And
is
what
Yoda the king?
What I couldn't find, and I don't know why I don't have it on here. It should have been, and I'm not sure where it went, but I had.
Hopefully, you got no inappropriate pictures on there.
I don't.
I'm looking over your shoulder.
It's a lot of hey, this guitar tuning is really cool to play in. Screenshot.
Such a nerd.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, wait. I gotta fast forward to so this is the top of the box, but I've done more since then.
Okay, so you 3D printed these chess pieces.
I did. Oh, because it's hooked up the road. I was like, where's the sound? So wait, turn on the sound. Not sponsored. Not sponsored. No, the Bluetooth one. Okay. All right. Let's see here if I can find it. So not sponsored. So when you open the lid,
are we sure the sound's working?
It's going to. I haven't pushed play yet. All right. So here we go. We're gonna open the lid to this board.
What?
So when you
open the board, the Star Wars theme activates.
So Paul is a huge chess nerd, and
he's
a Star Wars nerd. So I built this whole chessboard. So when he opens the lid, it activates the lights and the Star Wars theme song. When you pull off the lid, and all the chess pieces are in the lid in foam.
How did you 3D print the chessboard itself too?
So
or did you buy that?
The chessboard I resin poured.
You resin poured that? The whole thing yourself?
I resin poured the chessboard and 3D printed the chess pieces. Yeah.
And now we know why this man's busy.
That was
in case you're wondering, that's for Paul Lindgren from many episodes ago. Season 1.
This is season 6.
I don't believe it.
Stay rooted.
Is that the theme of season 6? Is stay rooted?
Yeah, that's gonna be the theme, man. You nailed it when you said stay rooted. And last episode 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, you know what? That's the theme for season 6.
I'm pulling this into Evernote. I'm putting this in Evernote right now.
Stay rooted.
Because
put it in intro. Season 6. Stay rooted.
I mean,
you want me to do it?
No, I'm doing a new note.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But you keep talking. So my question is, what you gonna make for me?
So I got some stuff in the works.
No, you don't.
I've got some stuff. The problem I'm having is I've got some issues going on with my 3D printer that every time I print something, the G code fails.
I don't know what that means.
And I'm not understanding why it is failing, but it is. So I got to figure that out.
I don't know what that means.
The G code?
Yeah, I don't know.
So you take an image and you basically convert it from a PNG to to like a CX9.
Whatever file that they need to read it.
And then you take that one and you convert it into a G code, and then that's what the printer actually prints out.
Gotcha. Okay, I have never printed anything 3D. I've never touched a 3D printer. I have things printed, like I bought stuff off Etsy, like my drill holder is a 3D printed mechanism.
I've built
like that.
I've done a bunch of like Milwaukee tool holders for work that I printed those off, taking them to work so I can put all my tools and hang them up.
That's pretty dope.
It's awesome.
You know what else is pretty dope?
What's that?
When people leave us reviews.
That is true. And we're not drinking any coffee.
No,
well,
we're drinking water, guys.
We drank my roast, and now we're just on. Janelle needs to go to the store.
Wow, call her out like that, Janelle. Let the record show.
I wasn't calling her out. I was just stating a fact.
I did not call you out. Janelle's got to get her butt to the store. That's what women do.
That's what you said, Beth.
No, I did not.
You need to smack him for that one. You just did.
No, I did.
All I said is Janelle needs to go to the store. I didn't say it in a condescending way or like this is her job. She does. It's time for grocery shopping. She needs to go to the store and pick up more sparkling water. And I was going to get some on my way home tonight. But again, I got held up at work. Exploded. So it didn't happen. So we're just drinking a regular old agua.
From Aldi?
From
Coker?
Wherever.
I think it's
Aldi. Anyways, so the review for the day.
Yep, Aldi, twice as nice.
Comes from 62 Flash, 62, 65, 3, hut.
Oh, well, so I'm like, what? I went for Omaha.
No, I was reading the names.
At the end.
62 Flash, 62, 65, 3, hut.
That's awesome.
And it says, thank you. Y'all, not you all, but y'all must be from
the South.
Y'all doing this has definitely changed my life around and seems like a lot more. I've started reading my Bible. I don't know why I went to an Australian accent, trying to go Southern, and I just went straight here. Well, I've started reading the Bible back here in the Outback a little bit more. What I'm thinking of Latin. Honestly, I can say
we're gonna get.
Now canceled. I'm going into bed from Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins.
I'm waiting for Harry Potter. Harry Potter.
I can honestly say, I don't know if I've ever would have started my journey back to Christ again if it wasn't because of you two. It's not because of us, it's because of him. So thank you.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you. 62 Flash, 62, 65, 3, hut.
Whoever you are, you might be Peyton Manning. We don't know. Send us a message and we'll get you a mini swag bag in the mail.
That's right. But you know what else we can get in the mail? The show. And it's on the road. And we're talking about the illusion of freedom. I don't know why that was such a rash transition, but it was.
Do you hear the crickets?
No, because I don't have my sound pad.
All right. So I was sitting there thinking the other night about like, okay, so what would be a conversation that you and I we've thought about, we've talked about, and I think a lot of our experience can come into play with. And because sometimes, we do a lot of teaching episodes, so we do a lot of just good content, but I want to be a little chit chat from the heart.
Good is all relative.
To
us, it's good.
We try. Well, not even to us. Sometimes we're like, man, this might suck.
To other people, it's like, wow, this.
But I wanted us to have a real honest conversation because I know a lot of your story and your past is very different than mine. Where
yeah, I wasn't a grass fairy. Well, yes, I was. I was a grass fairy. I was a big grass giant fairy.
Now you're just a grizzly bear. But we had this conversation of people who have said, basically, screw this. I don't even part of Christianity anymore. They go their own way because they want their own sense of freedom. But is that really free? And the idea of this also came from when I was sitting in church on Sunday, Pastor Michael. Whenever it's like not like the main part, he'll say like one random thing that's like just like an off the cuff part of the sermon or whatever. And be like, oh, that's a good podcast topic. And that was part of it right here, where a lot of people will say that that Christianity is just a list of rules and regulations. And it's like, well, why would I want to submit to that when in reality you submit to everything 24/7 in your life?
True.
And so I'm like, that might be a good conversation to walk through. And then, when I start watching Instagram reels and Facebook videos, this whole idea comes up, this battle of Christianity versus not, of God does, and especially, with Pride Month coming up, as a fact of God doesn't want you to really be
Pride
free.
Month is already passed.
Oh, well, right now we're in the middle of it. So, but like, God doesn't really want you to be free. He wants you to sit down, shut up, and what's the word I'm looking for? Not become a mole, but basically like sit down, shut up, and just, what is it when you're supposed to, like in the military, you just conform. You conform to this idea of what you're supposed to be. But when you just release and let go and let everything go behind you, then you really are free to be whoever you're called to be or whoever you want to be.
Don't Romans say, don't be conformed by the world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, though?
Well, exactly. But the world's not bad, apparently. So I had all these different ideas. And when you talk to a lot of folks about Christianity, you often do hear these complaints that they don't want to follow a God that has a bunch of rules and regulations and makes people not live their own truth. You also hear from folks who walk away from the faith saying that and I actually heard this as a quote, they feel like a butterfly. They're finally free from the tightly bound cocoon and can fly free in the world. I just read that the other day.
You got a question, though.
Oh, what?
I got a question. That's why I raised my hand.
Oh, I thought you were saying me.
Where are they getting truth from?
Good question. We'll talk about it. So, hear folks say that they fear the fear of judgment is just Christians' ways of controlling people's lives and causing guilt and shame when there should not be guilt and shame. So today, I want us to have an honest conversation, man. So a conversation all around the idea is life without God more freeing than life with God? All right, so I have a handful of Bible verses.
Right.
I got a couple quotes. I don't know what direction this conversation going to go, but that's all I got. We're going old school. I got 2 quotes and some Bible verses, and we're just going to talk about it. All right. Sound good?
Let's go.
All right, so to get started, I want to start with the 2 quotes, one from an atheist and one from a Christian, and I think this will set the stage pretty well for today's conversation. So, this is from a CNN article back in 2015. An atheist named Ryan Bell, who actually was a former Seventh-day Adventist pastor who walked away from the faith after being an ordained pastor for 15 years. So, like, we're talking like, how old would you be if after you were first in ministry? So like late 30s, maybe even early 40s was when he walked away from the faith. He said this, and this was part of one big, massive article, and we'll have a link in the show notes, but it says, but my experience is that acknowledging the absence of God has helped me refocus on the wonderful and unlikely life that I do have. This realization has increased my appreciation for beauty and given me a sense of immediacy about my life. As I come to terms with the fact that this life is the only one that I get, I am more motivated than ever to make it count. So this guy says that acknowledging that God does not exist, that God is not there, helps me enjoy my life right here, right now, in the world that I find myself in. So another quote, though, from William Lane Craig, which is one of the leading evangelical philosopher and apologists. He says this in an article called The Absurdity of Life Without God. Again, link will be in the show notes. It says, modern man thought that when he had gotten rid of God, he had freed himself from all that represented and stifled him. Kind of what this guy said above. Instead, he discovered that in killing God, he also killed himself. For if there is no God, then man's life becomes absurd. If God does not exist, then both man and the universe are
inevitably.
Wow, that was bad.
I got you on that one, bro.
Inevitably doomed to death. Man, like all biological organisms, must die. With no hope of immortality, man's life only leads to the grave. But his life is but a spark in the infinite blackness, a spark that appears, flickers, and then dies forever. Therefore, everyone must come face to face with what the theologian Paul Tillich has called the threat of not being. For though I know now that I exist, that I am alive, I also know that someday I will no longer exist, and I will no longer be, that I will die. This thought is staggering and threatening, to think that the person I call myself will cease to exist, and that I will be no more.
Unless you believe like Jim Carrey, this is all an illusion in our minds. Life is an illusion.
What's that movie?
Deception or Inception. Think of the Inception?
Well, no, Jim Carrey?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about. This is like Jim Carrey in real life.
Oh, I think of the
Jim
movie
Carrey in real life.
Everyone what was the movie where he was like in this world and it was like a sitcom and everyone on the outside watched it, but he thought it was his real life?
The Truman Show.
Yeah, that one. I was thinking they were talking about that one.
I thought you were talking about Inception. Is that the one with Leonardo DiCaprio? What's it called?
That's the one with
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, with the dice spin.
Yeah, that thing. What's it called?
Was that Inception?
I think that's what it was called.
What was the one with Matthew McConaughey though, where he like went outside and saw himself like third person and
Interstellar.
Interstellar. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So, but that's people had these questions, and so I brought both of these quotes in here because they're kind of bookends to the conversation. Where you have people like William Lane Craig, which I've listened to hours of William Lane Craig's devotionals. I've actually listened to his Sunday school classes. I've also listened to many of his debates. I've read many of his works, and his big thing is the fact of without God, there is no morality, and life just does not make sense. Like that is his side. But then there's so many other people who say, once you throw off this idea of God, this idea of religion, you can just admit that, yes, this is the only life I got. So you better freaking make it count, which is funny because Christianity also happens to say that you have one life, so make it count. But these are kind of the two bookends of this whole idea. And I think this is a question that a lot of people who are, maybe grew up in the faith, which I would put myself into this category of, we have always been in the faith. We grew up in the faith. The faith is all we know. Have I sinned? Yes. Do I sin? Yes. Do I struggle with sin? Yes. Do I fight with sin every day? Yes. But have I ever just walked away from the faith and did whatever the heck I wanted to do with no remorse and no repercussions and just expected everyone to get on and carry on? No, I have never done that. And then I know there's other folks like you who also grew up in the faith, but then walked away and came back. Then there's other people like my friend Kalen, who I had a great conversation with him where he knew nothing about the faith at all. He didn't get saved until he was an adult. And so when you talk to him about like, does he ever have struggles with where his faith is at? He goes, why would I have doubts and struggles?
Right.
I came to this as an adult. I know this is fact. I would have done it if I didn't.
Right.
And there's so many of us who come from different walks of life. And I know on the podcast, there's so many of us who come from different walks of life who maybe have asked this question and came to the conclusion of, no, I have a God-sized hole in my heart that only God can fill, C.S. Lewis. Or there's those of us like me where it's like, this is all I know. So what is life on the other side if this is all I know? Is there more to just this idea of this?
It's terrible.
Or, and here's the bigger question though, if in your life, if we say we are fully free, are we actually free? Or is that freedom just an illusion? That's the big metaphysical question.
Sure.
For the show.
The philosophical
question. Philosophical metaphysical question of this, of is freedom really just an illusion? So I guess I'm going to ask this question now, boss. Do you want me to read some scriptures first, or do we want to have a little chitty chat about it?
Whatever you want, my friend.
Okay, so I'll read some scriptures about it, right? So I have a handful of scriptures here. I'll read all five, then we can talk about them. So and again, I got no notes, I got no points, I got no none. So we're gonna see where this thing goes.
There's a fun fact though.
There is a fun fact. So I brought up the first verse because this is the one that a lot of us think about doing whatever you want to do. And it's back in Judges. And it says in that day, back in the day of the Israelites,
when it was terrible,
there was no king of Israel and everyone did whatever seemed right to him.
Yeah, like raping and killing and everything else that they did.
Well, you even got these priests like the
Benjamites and all that stuff that
he made a bet or something like that, or an oath, and he lost, and he like chopped up his maidservant and said like the 7 parts of the world or whatever it was like that.
Or how about the dad that's like, God, you help me do this, and the first thing that walks out of my door, I'm going to sacrifice to, and it was his daughter walked out.
His daughter.
Like, that's crazy.
And then you see people of Lot where they're like, hey, can we just like take your guests and have a little good time with them too, like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Had a good time.
A good time, not for the guest, but like you see these things.
Though, but yeah.
So in Judges, all over the book of Judges, you see the fact of people do whatever they want to do. The world goes hog wild crazy. The Israelites go into captivity. God sends a judge to rescue them, and then what happens? The cycle goes again, but it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the idea is the fact of there's no one overseeing them. They're doing whatever seems right to him. And because of that, there was so much bad things that were happening because all you were doing was looking out for number one. So the idea is the fact of even though you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, your freedom can end up causing havoc on everybody else around you, which we both have experienced that, both our own lives, self-destruction, that we cause damage to other people for our choices, but then other people's decisions causing damage to us.
Well, yeah, because if there's no right or wrong, it's all whatever you think, then whatever's right in your own eyes, then it doesn't matter if it affects you as long as it's right in my eyes. It doesn't matter if it hurts you or damages you. It's okay with me. Anyways, continue on.
So the next one is 1 John 2:15-17. It says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride in one's possessions is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world with its lust are passing away, but the one who does the will of God remains forever. So with this verse, it kind of has a twofold message. One is the fact of what the world has to offer. which is what feels good, what looks good, what do I want out of life? And it's very much just a sex, drugs, rock and roll type culture where the fact of if I want it, I can go after it and get it because it makes me feel good. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die type mindset.
Yep.
You know, and so with that passage coming into this idea is the fact of Jesus, or sorry, not Jesus, but John is saying the fact of these things will go away, but what will remain? That's kind of the question that John was saying, was the fact of we know we have all these things, but don't do them because the world with its lusts are passing away. But the one who does the will of God will remain for forever. We keep reading, though, in his gospel, John 8:34-38, which this might be the passage that we hang on to and chat for a little bit about. It says, Jesus responded, "Truly I tell you, whoever commits sin is a slave to sin. A slave does not remain in the household forever, but a son does remain for forever. So if the son sets you free, you really will be free. I know you are descendants of Abraham, but you are trying to kill me because my word has no place among you. I speak what I have seen in the presence of the Father. So then you do what you have heard from your father." So with this passage, this is kind of what I want to talk about a little bit. So it's the fact of whoever commits sin is a slave to sin. And this is where the idea of the illusion of freedom kind of came into mind, is whoever commits sin becomes a slave to that sin.
Yep.
And so I want to throw it your way because I know we've talked about your story and I don't want to, just talk about the sad times in your life too. But you've shared so many times with your own personal story the fact of when you walked away from the faith just to go do whatever you wanted to do, you got into so much stuff that ended up controlling your entire life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, became a drug addict and a womanizer and alcoholic and things that to try to fill that God-sized hole in my soul that could not be filled, and trying to basically, eat,
so
be drunk, be merry, and it was what it was.
But can I ask, so at the beginning, was it, it's going to sound weird, but was it fun? Was it enjoyable? Did it feel like freedom?
It felt like freedom, but that's the interesting thing with sin, right? I remember as a kid, it always being described as it's like Satan has a bunch of candy and he's laying out this line to a pit of candy, and you're like, oh, that's a good piece of candy. Oh, that's a good piece of candy. Before you know it, you're hanging over the cliff, right? Trying to pull yourself back up, and you can't do it, and you end up falling off. That's the way sin is, right? It's what's that song? Casting Crowns, slow fade. It's a slow fade.
I haven't heard that one in forever.
Slow fade when you give yourself away. The Casting Crowns. Sin, and if Satan wasn't good at what he does, he doesn't just put a big sin out there and be like, I'm going to entice you with this massive sin and you're going to
go destroy your life.
Yeah, go murder somebody. It never starts off that way. It always starts off as small, and he gets you to just take a nibble, take a nibble, take a nibble. Pastor Scott made a great illustration. I brought this up maybe even last year or 2 years ago in the podcast, of chocolate cake, and really temptation is like,
oh, I remember that illustration. Yeah.
Chocolate cake on the table, and you're trying to watch your diet, and you walk in the room and you look over at the cake, and you should just walk away. Be like, nope, I don't need the cake, and walk away. But you don't. You keep looking back at it. And every time you look back at it,
that's not a chocolate cake.
And you take a step towards it, and you're like, you're just inching closer. So you're not actually eating the cake right off the bat. You're just kind of inching closer to it each time. Oh, yeah, that looks good. That looks good. And that's what sin is, right? It's never the big sins that really get people right away. It's a small sins. It's just the tiny stuff. Like for me, it was hanging out with friends, right? Hanging out with the world. That's where it started for me. I went from hanging out with Christians to hanging out with the world. Just, all right, cool.
And we talk about but think about last episode about apostasy as well. Kind of the idea of, we talked about the best way to stay grounded in your faith and stay rooted in your faith.
Right. It's community. We talked about community, right. So I stopped hanging out with the community shortly after that, right? I started hanging out with the world. I was still hanging out with the community, started hanging out in the world more often and let them influence me. Then I started slowly fading out of my community of faith and more into the community of the world, right? Slowly. It wasn't like an overnight, oh, I'm done going to church, I'm here. No, it was a slow transition. And then it was eventually, I just stopped going to church altogether.
So did you ever have a moment though where you were just like, I'm done with Christianity? Or was it just kind of faded out into it?
It happened with a guy that I really looked up to as a mentor, and he lost his temper and swore at me one time. And I'm like, if this is a Christian, I don't want no part of it. And that's when it was like but my mind was already gone. I was already.
So would you say that was just an excuse? That was yep.
That was like, I'm looking for a reason. Okay. And that was the reason that came out. But yeah, it was just a really slow phase that grew probably over a year. It probably took a year for me to really transition from churchgoer to no, I'm done. And then after that, then it got into, oh, well, I'm going to do this. All right. Hey, you ever tried weed before? No, never tried it. Here, puff on this one time. It's like, oh, wow, this is like a weird feeling. This is kind of a cool feeling, this high feeling. All right, cool. I like that. All right, give me another hit. And then you go, oh, well, I like that so much, but I got to have a job. So let me try some of the synthetic stuff. It's like, oh, okay, the synthetic stuff, which is terrible for you. And you say, oh, that's even better high. But now I'm looking for a better high than that. So let's lace it with a little heroin. All right, cool. Now it's really getting up there. Bam, that high is really lasting. And so it's never like, oh, I'm going straight to heroin or I'm going straight to drinking all sorts of alcohol, a fifth first thing in the morning. It never started off that way. It was always a sip of beer. Oh, 2 sips of beer. Oh, and now I've got a whole beer. All right, now I've got 3 beers. Now I've got 5 beers. And now I'm at a fifth. And it slowly snowballs over time. It never just starts off as a fifth of liquor. Fifth, it's like half of a half gallon.
I've never heard of that term.
Liquor. Yeah, it's a fifth. So it just slowly it leads you down that path until you're getting drunk and high all the time. And once you're doing that, your decision making is really out the door. So then you start really, doing whatever.
And you would say would you say that enslaved you? The fact of like, that's what you lived for and controlled your 100%. Your life?
Yeah. I was always looking for the next high. So I remember even before payday, you'd be digging through your carpet on the floor, looking to see if you could scavenge stuff that got dropped while you were loading your bowls and trying to pick together.
Because you ain't got no money?
No, yeah, because you're out of money and you got to wait for the next payday, but you're trying to look for the high. And so that's what you were doing. And that kind of mentality, it destroys your soul. It destroys you as a human, really. It does. And your mental capability and perception of how life should be, because you're always just living for the next high rather than actually living. You're a slave to it. And again, it just started off small. It started off with just hanging out with people that weren't Christians. That's the way it started. And then slowly hanging out less and less with Christians and more with world, right? Which was an intentional choice by me to do that. So you got to be careful in what you do, and you got to look at everything that you do. I'm
like, nope, don't mess up the flow. Don't mess up the flow, Mark.
And where it can lead into. And that's where I think, right, living in Christ is true freedom, right? Because Christ gives us this mental clarity and lets us know, hey, these are not a list of rules because I'm a tyrant. These are a list of rules because this is what's best for you if you live this way. It's like what's that scripture? It talks about children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And you will have, what is it?
Honor for their mother, and you will have a long life on the earth.
And it's got nothing to do with, oh, well, if I honor my mother and father, then it's why, right? If they're Christ followers, or if they're God followers, and you're honoring them and you're obeying them, you're not going to do the things that take you into making bad choices and maybe getting in a car wreck or ODing or stuff like, I mean, that kind of stuff that can destroy your life really fast. That's how you get the long life. It's obeying the ways of God, not because they're a list of rules or you're trying to gain something. It's because they're in the betterment of you and for you. God created us in his image. We're made in the image of God. And so if we're made in the image of God, don't you think that God knows us best? So why would he, making us in his image, and that's Genesis 1, making us in his image, or I'm sorry, it's Genesis, end of chapter 1, I think. And then chapter 2, he just says it again. Why would he make us in a way and then give us a bunch of rules, right? So sin is destroying us, right? Because Romans 3:23, Paul says, wages of sin is death. And because of that, right, the wages of sin destroys us. It destroys the body. It's part of our life now, right? We all are expected to die because of sin. But that's not the way it was supposed to be. So God is saying, here is what I want you guys to do, and this will help you in the way you live. And it's for you. If you love me and you keep my commandments, it's going to be better for you, for your spiritual life, for your mental life, for your physical life. Doing these things, staying away from the world, that's going to help you actually remain free of sin and being that slave to sin, or looking for that next thing, or just even being empty on the inside, destroying the psyche. It doesn't necessarily have to be the way I destroyed my life of drugs and sex and alcohol. It could be destroying yourself mentally, your self-image, or looking at your image and making your image an idol to God. I know this is a lot with people that are really fit, people who are really out of shape. Body image is a huge thing, right? They make this image and they're like, I need to look this way. This is the way I need to look, and I need to focus on this. And I can do this, and I can do this, rather than focusing on God and his ways and saying, yes, I need to treat my body as a holy temple. I need to treat it right and not misuse it. But that's not my main focus, as far as I shouldn't always focus on this.
And so, when I think about that, I think it's really easy for us to see it when it's black and white, where, we talk about being sin when it has you, that's when it overtakes you. And we're drawn away from our own desires, our own lust of our own flesh. And then that's when we fall into sin. And we do see, opioids and drugs, how those can ruin and destroy your life. We can see how, alcoholism can destroy your life, how addiction or just sex addiction in general can ruin your life.
Right.
And a lot of times we see this as the fact of, I'm free to do whatever the heck I want to do. Just screw it. I'm going to go have a good time, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. I think it's easy for both Christians and honestly unbelievers to say, yeah, that's not real freedom either, because now you're just addicted. So you're being controlled by something else.
But what you're looking at is you're looking at the bookends. You're not looking at the gray.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I was about. And I'm like, we're hitting 30 minutes. I'm like, how deep do we go into the gray? Because there's an artist here that I follow on Instagram and Spotify, and he just dropped a song about, he basically said, I'm a recovering church kid, and here's my first step. And he wrote the song, and you read it, and as a Christian, your heart breaks over it. But you see so many people in the comments were like, yes, once I left Christianity, my life got so much better. And these are folks who...
That's because they look at God as the sinful people in the church, right? We're still sinners, right? If we're left on our own without Christ, we're still sinners, bro.
Right. But a lot of times, and I agree, but there's a lot of times where these people in the middle where they live very good. And again, you and I can philosophically debate a lot of these ideas where they are... they still love their neighbor. They're still kind. They're still loving. And the whole thing with the LGBTQ conversation with Christians, the fact of when Christians say that's not God's design for marriage. If you want to be gay, sure, go ahead. But you can't be a Christian too because of this. Right. And that's not the way God created the world. And then all of a sudden Christians get accused of, well, you don't love people. Your God must hate people. So therefore you hate everybody too. And now all of a sudden, I think this is where Christians we don't always struggle with the bookends, but we struggle with that middle gray area where it's the fact of like even for me, right? I have so many clients. I would say most of, if not all of my clients, I'd say pretty much all my clients are very good, kind people. Mm-hmm. They make mistakes, they mess up, but I have a lot of great Mormon clients that are friends, that are just amazing people. I have a lot of people who are just completely unbelievers, but they do so much crap for their community. I have a lot of people who walked away from their faith or never had faith. And yes, I do believe that I can have these conversations and help people out. But there's so many people who they're like, my life is free. Why do I need this? What does it make it better?
Get to the core root of all that.
Okay.
Of the good morality. That's what we'll call it. Right. The I love my neighbor.
Okay.
Whether I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Hindu. What's the core theme? Whether I'm LGBTQ, why are they that way? Why are they good? Why are they moral? Why do they love their neighbor? Why is LGBTQ, non-Christian, atheist love their neighbor?
Well, I would say because the Western world has been impacted by Christianity to its core, and no one can see the difference.
You want to know my opinion?
Yeah.
Community. They're looking for a community that is like-minded with them, that helps them and agrees with them in the way that they're choosing to live because it makes them feel good about themselves.
Okay.
It's all selfish reasons, right? I think of Hindu, right? How are they trying to win their salvation? Buddhism. It's all works-based. It's
good works
and trying to earn their way.
And even the Mormons say in the Book of Mormon, it says, and after you have done all you can do,
right,
I pray my good works.
So it's all about for them. Christianity, true Christianity. Why is the reason that we are loving our neighbor?
It's because Christ first loved us.
Because Christ loved us, and it's out of that outpouring of what Christ has done for us is the love for them, right? It has nothing to do with I love Christ because Christ tells me I should love, or I love Christ because Christ tells me I should love him, or I love my neighbor because Christ told me I should love my neighbor. No, it's going, I am so grateful because I don't deserve this, that Christ loved me enough to do this. And I love people and I want to love God's creation, not because I have to, because I want to, I get to, because of what Christ did for me. That's the difference,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas in any other, whether you're an atheist, that bookend, all the way down to Mormonism or whatever else you want to put in that blank space, there is most of the time at the root of it, some selfish reason or some self-gratifying reason of why they're doing it, whether they're trying to earn something, they feel accepted, that it helps them solidify them in their lifestyle, right? So I look at a lot of these the transgender stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the pronouns and all that stuff, and it's like, well, you're disrespecting me. Well, why am I so and so? These debates. Well, because you didn't use my proper pronouns. Well, I called you a gender, right? And it's the whole gender debate, which I'm not trying to get into, but there's only two genders according to God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, yeah, but I want you to call me what I want you to call me. And they call it the platinum rule, right? Love me. You should love me how I want to be loved.
Okay.
Right? Rather than you should love me the way God wants you to love me, which is the way we look. That's our Christian view. Well, that's the way it should be, right? And I will be the first to admit a lot of Christians mess up and don't get that right. They love in a way that they want to be loved, right? And it's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That's so to me, I go by Christ's rule, Christ's law, which is love others because I first loved you. Exactly what you just said. And realizing that without Christ, right? When and this is the cool thing, like for me, as one who was brought up in the faith, who walked away from the faith, and God brought back, right? It gave me a different perspective on life. It gave me a different perspective on Christ, and really understanding that where I was on my own would have led to death, an early death for me, and was a miserable life. It was an empty life. And that's where, like, though I think it's great that people that grow up in church stay in church and stay faithful to God. That's awesome. You guys have something to experience that I can never experience, right? That faithfulness, that steadfastness. But people like me or people that come to the faith later in life who never grew up in the faith have a perspective of gratefulness for knowing who they were without God and knowing what Christ has actually done for them in a very real way of, I know who I was without Christ. I know who I was when I was on my own. I know the things I thought, the things I did, the things I wanted to do, and I know who I am now, and they're two drastically opposite things. And it's not anything that I did. Like, that's the amazing thing. Chris Fuller would still be the dump down in the dumps, nasty, dirty Chris Fuller if it wasn't for Christ and Christ changing me. That's what it would be. Chris Fuller had nothing to do with the transformation. It was all God. It was God putting that hunger in my life. Now, it was me being obedient, right? It's me saying, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. But who gave me the strength to say, yes, Lord? He did. Right? I could do nothing without him. That's what the Philippians 4:13 really talks about. I have, in all things I can do, Christ who strengthens me, because it's Christ who strengthens me every day. He's the one that gives me breath. He's the one that allows me to take my next breath and to live my next day. And how will I choose to serve? How will I do it? Do I have to serve? He said, no, you don't have to serve me. You don't have to. But I want you to. And I died for you, right? It's not God's will that any should perish, but that all should come to him in repentance. Not everybody does. That's his will. He wants everybody to come, but he doesn't force anybody to come. He invites people to come. So I get to choose each day whom I'm going to serve. And to me, that is all through the strength of Christ and what Christ has done in my life. And seeing that drastic difference is so freeing to me, because I'm not a slave to religion. I'm not a slave to this world. I get to choose to be a slave to Christ because of appreciation of what Christ did for me in my life. So,
yeah, and I think I want to make this a part two, and not, I mean, this part of the conversation is done, but I think it'd be really good to go into that idea of this illusion of freedom, of where does morality stem from, and can you have morality without God? I think that'd be a really fun conversation to have.
Definitely.
But to end this conversation, because I know we had to end the show, and
sorry,
your boy's got to go to bed. Not your boy me, but this guy over there,
the other greenie.
I'm going to end with this verse. It's in 1 Peter 2 verses 16 and 17, which, going back to Peter, which Peter was the biggest loudmouth of their all, and he was the biggest one to.
I related a lot to Peter.
Peter's just a dope. I actually think I relate to Peter more, but I don't think I relate to Peter as much as I would like to with how boisterous and bold he really is.
I'm the screw up Peter. I'm the screw up Peter that is saved by grace through Christ. That's what I am.
So Peter says this. So he says, submit as free people, not using your freedom as a cover up for evil, but as God's slaves. Honor everyone, love the brothers and sisters, or in the King Jimmy, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. So as free people, use your freedom as God's slaves, which means you need to honor everyone, love the brothers and sisters, the other Christians, fear God, and honor the emperor. And even Jesus says, use your freedom in such a way where you go out and you serve one another.
Yeah. Man, can you imagine that Peter saying that in that time, honored the emperor?
Hot dang, dude.
Like in the time when the emperor is causing persecution.
Not my emperor.
Like that was the mindset of the Jewish people, right? Wow, it's mind blowing to me. But
it is, and
that's how much Christ changed Peter.
So with this conversation, is the fact of, can you find true freedom without God? I don't think we necessarily answered it from a philosophical conversation, but you took it and ran with that, bro, just sharing your story. So I want to say thank you for sharing your story a little bit more, man. I always love hearing it. So I didn't mean to tee you up to go after it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
That's why you said it.
You know what?
I didn't mean to ramble that long though.
But I know, here's the deal though, brother. I appreciate hearing stories like that because it reminds me of our friendship. It reminds me of the path that you walked and the path that I walked, and that moment we first met, and we're like, yeah, we could do something really cool together. Right. So I know I appreciate hearing your story, and I was hoping people would appreciate hearing your story too, man.
And if they don't, just hit that skip button.
Too late now. Well, hey man, do we got a fun fact to end the show?
We do.
All right,
short one.
Let's do it.
Time for fun facts with Billy.
All right, my dude. So let's end this show with a fun fact. What you got?
This one just made me chuckle. It's very, very short, but it made me chuckle. And did you know that penicillin's first name before it was penicillin was mold juice?
What?
Hey, give me some of that mold juice. I'm
For
sick.
reals?
I'm sick. I need some mold juice.
This penicillin.
It's made out of mold spores.
I guess I don't really know what's in penicillin.
So, it used to be maybe it's still is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I know it used to.
Help us out.
I know it used
camera
to be.
Slowly twisted that way. That's kind of funny.
You kicked it like 3 times.
Did I kick it? My bad. There you go.
You kicked it.
There you go. My bad.
Anyways, so
penicillin was first called mold juice.
Mold juice. Yep.
That's really gross.
It made me chuckle.
You know what else is gross?
What's
people are not in the RTC Facebook group. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that one.
That's cringe.
I'm gonna rewind that one. You know what's really sad?
What's that?
Is that people have been listening to RTC and they're not part of the RTC community.
After 6 seasons and they're not there yet?
Not after 6, a little bit after 5. We're just into season 6 now. So we've had a total of 5.
At the 6th season.
Shoot, we're in that season, guys. We're in the season that Marc cannot, the season that must not be named. The season that can't be named. That's the season we're in. But guys, it has been awesome hanging out with you guys literally now for 5 stinking years. So for those of you guys that have been with us since the beginning, we want to say thank you. For those of you, though, who are new to the podcast, thank you as well. Head over to the website, realtalkchristianpodcast.com. You can search the whole archive to see what episodes we have covered, what episodes we haven't covered. And if there's an episode that you would love us to cover, let us know inside of the Facebook community, or send us a DM, email, or send us a text at 574-400-5352.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, head over to YouTube. Check out our channel, Real Talk Christian Podcast. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. Ding! So when we're on, you're aware.
Oh, goodness, man. But again, we love you guys. We hope you guys are still enjoying the conversations. If we met you guys at Revive Fest, I'm sure it was a heck of a good time. And hopefully one day we'll get to meet the rest of you guys too.
Well, at least in heaven.
At least in heaven. We'll have an RTC meetup around the throne. How about that?
A meet and greet with Jesus.
Sound good? I love it, guys. Well, hey, Fuller, I love you, man.
You, buddy.
And listener, I love you guys too. So until next time,
stay rooted.
Thank you.